you for joining me today. And today we're going to be talking, actually starting a new series on character. And the reason that this kind of all came about is because this coming Sunday is Father's Day. And it's a time always, I mean, my dad's on my mind a lot. But I think about him during Father's Day, of course, and I miss him dearly. My dad passed away a few years ago, and it's something that even though it was the right time, he was older, he was not doing well, his health wasn't well. I still miss him, and so I like to reflect, especially on Father's Day, kind of honor him and reflect on the kind of person that he was and the character that he lived by, the traits that he had that made him who he was. And so, again, it got me thinking, and I thought, you know what, this would be a great topic for us to cover for a few weeks because we all could use a little polishing of our character at times. And, I'm not here to judge or to say, oh, you need to step it up, but hey, I mean, like we all want to be growing and becoming better. I know I do, and I have some words that I have created for myself that help me remember to be the kind of person that I want to be, that help me, have clarity about the character that I always want to be exemplifying to others. And, one of the things that is very true about understanding someone's character is watching their behavior, watching how they act. And there's a quote by Steve Maraboli, and he says, "The truth of your character is expressed through the choice of your actions." And I think that that's really true. How we show up every day, how we behave, how we act, that says a lot about our character, the type of people that we are. We can say we are, a certain type of person. You can say, oh, I have high integrity, I'm kind, I'm this, I'm that. But if you're not being kind, if you're not acting in kindness, if you're not living and, showing up as that person that you want to be, then there's a disconnect. You're not being congruent with the character traits that you want to have and the actions that you're actually living by. So, again, I think that's really important because as we talk about how to be our best selves every day, looking and checking yourself for, am I behaving in a way that exemplifies the character that I want to live by? So the other piece of that that I want to kind of cover today is how do you judge, not judge, but how do you understand someone's true character? And so we'll talk through kind of a little three-step, not a three-step process, but three ways that you can really understand someone. But what I want to say first before that is to really give you a kind of a definition of what character traits are. So if you think of character traits as maybe descriptive adjectives for someone. So my dad, for example, he was honest, he was hardworking, he was trustworthy, he was fair, he was responsible, he was reliable, he was resilient, right? Those are character traits that he possessed. And he didn't just have those character traits, he showed them, he lived them in his actions. So thinking about maybe your own character traits or those of people that you know, obviously we all have good and bad. I mean, that's the truth. We are human, and that's what makes growth and wanting to grow and change and become that best version of ourselves is so valuable because we're not all perfect and we do always have room to grow. So think about your own traits or think about the traits of people you know. Maybe you want to be kinder. Maybe you want to be more patient or polite. Maybe you want to be more courageous, right? Those might be character traits. Maybe you know people who are like that and you're like, gosh, I wish I had the courage that my friend Susie had. Or I wish that I could be as thoughtful and kind as, my friend Tim is. Or, whatever. There's room for growth. So thinking about character traits, think of them in terms of those kind of descriptive adjectives. And on the other side of that, when we talk about the not so good or the negative character traits, I mean, you may know people, or maybe you do this yourself, where you are bossy, or short-tempered or judgmental or maybe you know people who are rude or petty or careless or arrogant. Those might be character traits that are not so good, right? So, how do you judge? How do you not judge? How do you determine what someone's character is? How do you assess that? So, the first thing, as I've already mentioned, is observing someone's behavior. When you observe behavior, you can identify what their character traits are that are coming through. So if you can characterize people by their actions, now listen to this is really important. Characterize people by their actions, and you won't be fooled by their words. And I'm sure that you can probably think about people who talk a good talk, but they don't live up to those actions. They don't practice the things that they say. They may talk about, for example, being kind and generous and giving, but yet they never practice those things. Their actions don't show that. They, you know, say you have a, this is kind of a mellow example, but say you have somebody who talks a lot about being kind and generous, but you go to a restaurant to eat together, or I mean, not now because we're not really going, although some people are starting to venture about into restaurants, but you go out and then they don't leave a tip. So they're not being generous there. So people's actions, when you can really characterize them by their actions, then you're not going to be fooled by their words. So paying attention to people's actions, one thing. Now the second piece of that is number two, look for recurring patterns. Look for recurring patterns or traits, because here's the deal. We might all have a bad day. You might maybe being joyful and bringing joy to others is something that is a character trait that you want to possess. And for the most part, you know, you do that, but you have a bad day one day and you're not very joyful. That's okay, right? Again, we're human and we're going to have that. But when you see patterns in people's behaviors, that's what you really want to take note of. If you're looking, if you are, you know, an employer and you're looking to hire an employee and you get, you know, you hire them or you call on their references, you want to know that there's patterns in the behaviors that are the characteristics that you're looking for, not that it's a one and done deal. So maybe they can show up at that interview being cheery and positive and bright, but if their references say, oh man, you know, this person didn't show up for work very often, they were always late, there were excuses why they didn't get projects done, that paints a whole different picture of a one-time behavior or action. So look for patterns in behavior or in their actions, and that can tell you really a more truthful view of someone's character traits. And then the last piece is really to trust your gut, right? Like, trust your gut, but don't judge, right? You notice I keep correcting myself when I started to say judging someone's character. We don't judge character because that's hard to do. And most of the time when we judge, we're judging on a very surface level of maybe someone's beliefs or someone's way of living or someone's, you know, I don't know, the way they look even. I've been guilty of that myself. I grew up in a generation that's very different from younger kids today where, you know, having tattoos all over your arms is totally cool. I mean, like, that's just the way people, a lot of people do, you know, have tattoos. Like, but in my generation, if I would have seen somebody like that, there would have been judgment about, oh, they must be wild, you know, they must be on drugs, they must be this or that. And like, that's not fair. That's not fair to judge people by how they look. But paying attention to their behaviors and how they show up and how they act, that's fair enough, right? So don't judge, but trust your gut. So if your gut is telling you deep inside, like, you know, I don't know, something doesn't feel right about this person, trust that and explore that and start to do the other two above, the other two steps that I mentioned today, which was observe their behavior and watch for patterns. And that's going to help you make a fair assessment of that person versus judging just surface level things. Okay, so all of that being said, I want you to examine your own character traits right now, because again, we're trying to grow and improve and be that best version of ourselves. So think about, first and foremost, be clear on the character traits that you want to exemplify. What kind of character traits do you want to have? And guess what? Here's the really cool thing about character traits. You can change them. You can learn and grow, and you can become better. So think about, first of all, what character traits you want to exemplify in your life, and then check yourself. Are you being congruent with what you say or that you want to be, the person you want to be, and the actions that you're taking as a person? Again, if you say, oh yes, I want to be, joyful is an easy one, because I want to be joyful and happy and kind, but you're rude when you're out in public, or you're grouchy all the time, and you're negative when you're talking to people, well, then your behavior and what you're saying, the character traits that you want to exemplify, those are not congruent. And that gives you an opportunity to start changing that. And, again, last of all, like, think about how can you change that then? If you know, I want to be more joyful, I want to be more positive, I want to be more kind, then think about how can I change my behaviors and my actions so that I match and am congruent with what I say I want to be as a person, and look for ways to start shifting and changing that. So I hope this was helpful today. I hope you like this subject, because we're going to again be talking about character over the next couple of weeks, because I think it's something that we all can from time to time use a reminder on to help polish up and improve our character. So until next week, thank you for joining me today, and I will look forward to speaking to you next week. So bye for now.